بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي خلق الخلائق بقدرته ونشر الرياح برحمته ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطاهرين المنتجبين المعصومين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجهم. Assalamu alaikum, sisters and brothers and dear viewers. Welcome to another program for the Ramadan 2023 series. Inshallah, your prayers, fasting, supplication, du'as, late night communication with Allah, inshallah, all accepted. Please keep everybody else in your prayer too. Since we just commemorated the anniversary of the martyrdom of al-Mu'mineen Sayyidah Khadijah al-Kubra, one of the most influential character in the early history of Islam, I thought I would depart a little bit from the general theme of Dua Abu Hamza Thumali and focus briefly on the life of this great lady that the Holy Prophet ﷺ has indicated that if it wasn't for Khadijah and Ali, Islam would not have been able to establish itself as quickly as it did. Unfortunately, Khadijah's story and her enduring legacy have been totally discounted and distorted by, apart from minor lip service given to her by the historians and contemporary politics. Her heritage is really in grave danger. The character of Khadijah, character of Abu Talib, character of Hamza, not to mention few other wives of the Holy Prophet, and these were the major figures of early Islam, have been either marginalized or very little written about them. And Khadijah is one of them. In the outskirt, and we are getting and explain during this session why I believe that we need to do something, and it is in danger, grave danger of being forgotten. Khadijah, in the outskirt of Mecca, Khadijah lies next to the grave, buried in the grave next to grave of Abu Talib alayhi salatu wassalam, in Jannat al-Mu'alla cemetery. As they lived their final years supporting and struggling to preserve the message that Islam brought and protect the life of the Holy Prophet. The last 3 years of their life, which they were exiled with a number of Muslims by the Quraysh and other tribes in Mecca into what is known as Valley of Abu Talib or Shu'ab of Abu Talib, would accumulate to their life and ultimately lead to their death in a state of poverty, exhaustion. And because of that, I say that Sayyidah Khadijah was martyred. And the year became the year of sorrow for the Holy Prophet, because he lost within few days of each other two of the major supporters, Abu Talib and Sayyidah Khadijah. It is not surprising then that both of their graves being subjected or targeted by the extreme zealots within the Sunni community and be destroyed to rubble. If you go back to 100 years ago, Jannatul Ma'alla cemetery was part of the rite of etiquette for Hujjaj to make a courteous visit to the grave of Abu Talib as well as al-Mu'mineen Khadijah, and learn from their history and their role and their contribution to early well-being of Islam. But unfortunately, no more. I'll explain around the end what do you get if you go to Jannatul Ma'alla these days. So let's start by asking the critical question: who was Khadijah? I think to be able to get to a fair and basic understanding of the life of this iconic female figure, we really need to dispense with that's my opinion at least, dispense with all history that have been written by those whose primary goal is to glorify Aisha. It has become a project for them. Because in the process of deification of Aisha, all attempts are made to marginalize everything else and disfigure and fabricate a hadith about the life of others, particularly the life of Khadijah. Unfortunately, it is most unfortunate that some of this constructed narrative, constructed history has found its way in the narrative of Shia understanding of history, and they still repeat few of these. It's only when we free ourselves from such restraint and we approach this with a critical mind, then we can at least establish a degree of fact about this unique figure and who she was, when she was born, and her relationship with the Holy Prophet, and how she protected the Holy Prophet during those critical days. And that these can become the subject of the further discussion, inshallah, in another lecture. Khadijah was the daughter of Khuwaylid ibn Asad and Fatima bint Za'idah, and they both belonged to the clan of Bani Hashim of the tribe of Bani Asad. She inherited her father's business at a time when society was male-dominated and male-orientated, and traded goods through the primary commerce route that existed at that time and centers between Mecca, Sham, and Yemen. Before Islam, she was known as Amiratul Quraysh, the princess of Quraysh, and At-Tahira, the pure one. She made every effort to deal with her job in leading such an, call it a vast business empire, not to allow her femaleness or femalehood to come in her way and create an obstacle. This is something, again, that we can teach our daughters and sisters, that the sky is your limit. Because you are female, gender should not be an obstacle in your path. Not only we should convince them that their gender is not an obstacle, we should encourage them and support them as much as possible to become great achievers and learn from the life of Khadijah and others. When we try to address the life of Khadijah, the first contentious question that comes across is to establish her date of birth. And the usual historians, such as Tabari, Ibn Athir, and others, which I call them the group with the glorification, that the central goal for them is to glorify Aisha. They do everything possible to glorify Aisha. Naturally, they would have date for her age to make her as old as possible, compared to later on coming back and saying that Aisha was as young as possible, and fabricate a number of ahadith around this age difference. By making her as old as possible, then they can conclude that she wasn't not only she, two accusations here that can be refuted, and people are beginning to write about it. Number one, her age, that she was not at the prime age of her youth, and number two, the fact that according to this project, or supporters of this project, she was married twice before and had a number of children from previous marriage. They say the supporters of this project, they say that she was born 15 years before Amul Fil. By saying this, then they move at the time of marriage with the Holy Prophet. The Holy Prophet was born on the Amul Fil itself, and we have discussed this in the past. The Arabian Peninsula at the time, they really did not have a clear calendar that they could go year by year. They would use what we call singular event, major event, to construct a calendar before and after. So the life of the Holy Prophet begins the year of Amul Fil, because Amul Fil, a year where Abraha attacked Mecca, was such a monumental story and event that they would say for a short period before or a short period after such as such was born 15 years before or 30 years before in the case of Abu Talib, or 10 years after, or whatever with the case of, say, Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah salam alayhi. So they say that she was born 15 years before Amul Fil. This is done, I believe, for a political purpose, as I explained just now, but I don't want to go into it and give the detailed analysis of it, inshallah, in the future. We believe from a hadith narrated from Ahlul Bayt that she wasn't married, and her age maximum is 30 at the time of her marriage to the Holy Prophet, if it wasn't 25 at exact age of the Holy Prophet. So according to these hadith, that would put her 5 years before Amul Fil at most, or Amul Fil at best, which is the same age as the Holy Prophet. She was either 5 years older or the same age. With regard to whether she was married or not married, a number of scholars, particularly in the contemporary time, including one of the Lebanese scholar, Marhum Sayyid Ja'far Murtada, in his book about Khadijah and in his article and research about Khadijah, clearly states that bearing in mind her lofty position and tribal culture, and the tribal culture prevailing at the time, it would have been highly unlikely for her to marry a person far below her tribal position from Bani Tamim or Bani Makhzum. So even going back to the early history of tribal structure, not only the fact that historically we don't have documents to support it, they have clearly indicated that she was not married before that marriage to the Holy Prophet of Islam, and also that she was around her age and maximum 5 years later. She married the Holy Prophet when she was 25 or 30. I was surprised this morning when I was looking at Marhum Mutahari's comment regarding the age of Fatima al-Zahra, how he accepts Ibn Athir and Tabari and immediately, states that Khadijah was 15 years senior to the Holy Prophet, while this is a contentious issue and debatable. She married him at the age of 25, then she lived with him for 25 years and died at the age of 50, 15 years before the proclamation and 10 years after the proclamation. It was after the exile into the valley of Abu Talib and the pain that they went through, the deprivation that they went through, that when they were finally able to come out within a short period of time, two major pillars in the life of the Holy Prophet, which was Abu Talib and Khadijah, Sayyidah Khadijah, they died within a short period of each other. She is the first female that accepted Islam, as Amir al-Mu'mineen was the first male that accepted Islam. Now they go through boy, man, and so on to give credence to Abu Bakr, Umar, etc., etc. This is the project of vilification of Ahlul Bayt and glorification of those who opposed Ahlul Bayt. We have to be mindful of that. That's why I say we really need to dispense with this kind of history and come back to ground zero and start analyzing. Even now, Sunni scholars have come out contesting the age of the accepted prevailing age of 7 years or 9 years for Aisha at the time of her marriage. All of them now, with the clear historical evidence, they support that at the time of marrying the Holy Prophet, she was at least 18, if it's not 22. And this is available, their contention video is available online, that they go through documents and they say so-and-so has indicated how much younger than her older sister, and her older sister, when was she born, and when was, definitely she was born before, at least 5 years to 6 years before the hijrah, before the proclamation. And that puts her at the time of hijrah close to 18 or 19 years of age. This is again something. The sacrifice and the close relationship that she had and the love she had for the Holy Prophet clearly can be detected from the statement that the Holy Prophet has indicated. Again, I don't want to narrate a hadith from Aisha, but this is something that وَالْفَضْلُ مَا شَهِدَتْ بِهِ الْأَعْدَاءُ, that its support underscores the position of Khadijah, when even Aisha has to admit that when she became critical of Khadijah, that she was old, ugly, and what do you want to do with her, and I'm young and beautiful, etc., etc. And the response from the Holy Prophet was, God Almighty never granted me anyone better than Khadijah. She accepted me when people rejected me. She believed in me when people doubted me. She shared her wealth with me when people deprived me. And God granted me children only through her and nobody else. So although the classic historians try to present, and by the way, in trying to attempt, they are to construct this fictitious history, early history of Islam, they are even prepared to to demean the position of the Holy Prophet. They say that the Holy Prophet, when he received the first wahy, and the revelation came down from the mountain shaking and disturbed, not knowing what happened to him. And it was Khadijah that had to hold his hand and go to her cousin for her cousin Waraqat ibn Nawfal to tell the Holy Prophet that this is the sign of prophethood and this is the beginning of your prophecy. But we believe that Khadijah, before Islam, because of constant conversation and discussion with Waraqat ibn Nawfal and other scholars of her time, she knew that there was something monumental is going to happen. And she was anticipating it. When the Holy Prophet approached, particularly after a couple of visits as representative of Khadijah for the business trip, and they came back, her servant, she asked her servant to explain the character of this individual. And he explained how he interacted with the monks and everybody else. She knew this is the person that she has been waiting for. Her love for the Holy Prophet is exemplary and unreserved and absolute. There are poems narrated from her that clearly establishes the degree of love and the compassion that she had for the Holy Prophet. And the Holy Prophet never denied it. She said in one, فَلَوْ أَنَّنِي أَمْسَيْتُ فِي كُلِّ نَعْمَةٍ وَدَامَتْ لِيَ الدُّنْيَا وَمُلْكُ الْأَكَاسِرَةِ فَمَا سَوِيَتْ عِنْدِي جُنَاحَ بَعُوضَةٍ إِذَا لَمْ تَكُنْ عَيْنِي لَعَيْنِكَ نَاظِرَةً. If I were to end the day having all the blessings imaginable, owning all the wealth and the power of the Persian kings, to me they are not worth anything, not even the value of the wing of a mosquito, if I am not able to look and gaze into your eyes at the end of the day. It's a beautiful love poetry between Khadijah that we don't know. Nobody talks about her. We simply immediately go that yes, Khadijah did this, Khadijah supported it, and then that's the end of it. And we advise our girls and boys, and particularly our girls and female members of our community, that yes, she was business orientated, but then she stayed at home. That's unfortunate. So this absolute love, she became the main protector of not only the Holy Prophet during the most difficult time of his life, the early part of Islam. She protected the Muslim community as well, because the aristocracy of Mecca tried to establish some kind of a restriction that would not allow the Muslim community to survive. And they used economic powers. That they would say no job would be given to Muslim. Even if they work, nobody will be paid for the job that they do. Total isolation from the community. If it wasn't for the wealth and support of Khadijah that gave everything that she had to the Muslim community, and that support was indispensable, the survival of Islam would have been questioned, or at least it would not have happened that easily, and it would not have been guaranteed the way it happened. Khadijah was the proud mother of 3 children, 2 boys, Qasim and Abdullah, that unfortunately they were still infant when they both died, and her only child, last and only surviving child, was her daughter Fatima al-Zahra sallallahu alayha. There is huge amount of conversation about daughters of Khadijah from previous marriage. We have ample proof from our Imams that these were not her daughter. These were daughter of either her sister or other person of members of their family that she had adopted in her life and was looking after them. And the Holy Prophet, when he married her, accepted them as part of the family. It is tragic for her grave to be desecrated, and the condition of her grave to become much like a prison. When this is where it becomes problematic. When you go to Jannatul Ma'alla these days, what do you see? You are not allowed to go close to the cemetery. The cemetery is encircled with barbed wire and protected by soldiers. The buses stop for only short period for a quick Assalamu alaikum ya Sayyid, Assalamu alayki ya Sayyidati Mawlati ziyara, and that's it. They have to pass, otherwise the police and the shorta and the military would come in and really rough. I saw the same thing with Hamza, the grave of Hamza. We couldn't stay there for more than 5 minutes, because then al-amiruna bil munkar wa nahuna al ma'ruf, they would come in and with the help of the shorty and the police, and they would beat people up. All of this, I believe, is a deliberate attempt by those who are trying to construct a false history around that centers around this glorious image that they given to Aisha, and at the expense of Salama, and particularly al-Mu'mineen Khadijah al-Kubra, and making her memory passed. It's impossible for her memory to be passed for generation if the symbol of her grave, which we consider it to be a universal symbol, doesn't exist, and people have no access to it. 150 years ago, people would go. There was a shrine on her grave. You go back to a shrine of Khadijah al-Kubra around early 900 past century, and you see it. white building. People would go in for ziyarah and come out. It was only around 1920, 1925, after many years of attempt by the Wahhabis, that ultimately they were able to desecrate and completely destroy it. There was even an attempt by Wahhabis, if it wasn't for the Muslim pressure, there were even an attempt to desecrate the grave of the Holy Prophet and completely destroy it. It's unfortunate. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. There is nothing we can say. So on this occasion, I would like to offer my condolence to everyone. Please keep us in your prayer during this period, and inshallah we come back and continue with this dua Sahar or dua Abu Hamza Thamali in the next session. Thank you very much for listening. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.